Tourism is big business in Minnesota, generating nearly $12 billion in sales and providing almost 240,000 jobs each year. Even with those impressive numbers, there is still room for this industry to grow. There are several different types of tourists, from the family traveler to the business traveler. A growing segment of tourism revolves around the sports traveler, and Explore Minnesota Tourism is working to make Minnesota a popular destination for the sports tourist. Here's Ben with more.
Explore Minnesota Tourism is placing an emphasis on increasing the number of mainstream, adventure, and adapted sports events held in Minnesota. Sports events can generate significant business for communities. Small and mid-size amateur tournaments and other sporting events can bring in $1 million or more in visitor spending to the host city, and large events have a multi-million-dollar economic impact. To that end, last week, a number of individuals with a vested interest in expanding sports tourism gathered for a first-of-its-kind conference at the National Sports Center in Blaine.
Well, what this day is about is communities all throughout Minnesota getting together to figure out how we can grow tourism through sports. There's so many different sporting events that go on throughout Minnesota, from youth sports to collegiate sports to senior sports, that bring in lots of people, that bring in lots of dollars, that has economic impact for hotels and restaurants, and we're just trying to grow that in Minnesota.
This is a real honor for the National Sports Center to host this conference. This is the first time a meeting of everybody in the state involved in sports tourism has happened.
When you look at the numbers of people that are participating in sporting activities, again, from the youth to the senior level and everything in between, there's a lot of participation, and Minnesota has the facilities and it has the destinations, the communities throughout the state that really want to embrace that, to provide what people need for these types of sporting events.
Conference attendees strategized on how they could collaborate instead of compete in the sports tourism field.
When sports tourism becomes bigger in the state of Minnesota, everybody is helped by that. So when you market for sports events nationally, number one, sharing information is important. So that's what we're doing today, is helping other people create new events and build up sports in their own communities. Bidding for events is really improved when you work together. For example, an event might work at the National Sports Center, but if it doesn't, we might be able to refer that event to another community in the state and keep the business in Minnesota.
Tourism generates more than $32 million per day in economic impact for the state of Minnesota. And while a portion of that is related to sports tourism, many believe that sports tourism has a potential to be a huge growth area.
No matter if you're a small community or a large community, there's opportunity to bring travelers, to bring people to your area through sports.
11% of sales tax revenues in the state come directly from the tourist industry. Now, that's not all sports tourism, but a lot of it is. And when you think of sports tourism, obviously people in the Blaine area, they think of soccer at the National Sports Center or hockey here. But there's also things like adventure sports and mountain biking and softball tournaments that are held in communities all over the state, or paddling in the Boundary Waters. Fishing is a huge part of sports tourism in the state of Minnesota. So it's important, and a lot of communities depend on sports tourism as their main source of tourism revenue.
It transcends all seasons. It's not necessarily weather dependent. Many times when we're involved with promoting specific activities and events that are dependent on either winter or summer weather, we don't get the winter or summer weather. But sports goes on no matter what the weather may bring, and it's something that can bring people to communities in the off seasons when maybe some of the other travelers aren't there as well.
Even the National Sports Center, which is a mecca of sports tourism in Minnesota, still has room for more events.
We're a busy place, but we do have open dates. We specifically have opportunities in some of those growth sports that are emerging, sports like ultimate and rugby. We do some events in those sports already. Plenty of room for more events. We just hosted the USA against Canada national team rugby series. We'd love to do more of that.
Explore Minnesota continues to see several positive signs of growth in the tourism industry.
The future looks very bright for tourism in general in Minnesota. We're seeing some optimism on the part of the tourism industry in terms of what the summer will bring despite the weather. And there's definitely a lot of optimism for sports tourism as we're finding out here today.
For North Metro TV News, Ben Hale reporting.